Laser Map Maker is excited to announce tiling. Tiling gives you the ability to make a big map with a small laser. Or you can make some coasters, which is what we're going to do today. Let's head over to the studio and I'll show you how it all works.
Welcome to the Laser Map Maker studio. The Bank of the Ozarks was what I chose to do for these coasters. As you can see, I've set up the layers on the left-hand side here, and all we're going to do now is preview export and get started with tiling. Now that we've landed on the export preview page, we can navigate to the tiling tab, and let's go ahead and enable it. As you can see, the rows and columns will break up by a predetermined default here, 3x3. We actually just want to use a 2x2, and we're happy with the border width. We can update that preview. And now one thing we need to do is make sure the colors match the cut pieces. In this case, this is the land cut piece, and just as we would do in the studio, we would need to match those colors. I'm going to use this color dropper, finding that gray. I should be able to update that, and you can see it changed. I'll go ahead and do the same thing. Roads engrave actually just needs white. So a white in hexes FFF, and that should work there. Update that, and there you go. We don't need to cut anything for roads engrave, and that's exactly why I'm turning them white so the laser doesn't have to do anything. The last one would be the roads cut layer. The roads are black and the border is black. So in this case, we don't have to do anything here. It looks like we're ready to go ahead and go to the next step. Here's our laser summary, and I'm happy with all of these items. The export cost is 3 credits. We have 3 files here, and so we're only being charged for the files. We're not being charged to split apart, but you will get each one of those pieces in one file that you can then put into your print area on your design software and go ahead and run the job separately. So I'll go ahead and export. I am ready to export. I'm going to confirm that and export. All right, as you can see, we are processing. This means that we are running the jobs right now, the tracing and the fills to get all the images and vector for you. And this does take a few minutes, but it's not too bad. We have a status of complete, and we could just go download zip, but I'd like to take a peek. We're gonna go ahead and open these exports up, and it looks, just from looking at all 3, like that worked pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and download the zip for these. We would like to choose the output, which is the requested vector strategy. The originals would just be kind of what you would see on the studio before we set the vector strategies up. So I'll click output and save. And let's go ahead and head over to our favorite program, LightBurn, and let's figure out how we can get these ready for the laser. Now that you've downloaded from Laser Map Maker, you can take your files and just drag them in one by one into a program like LightBurn. I'm going to use LightBurn for this example, but if you're familiar with other design softwares, you can use those just as well. Okay, let's go ahead and start with cleaning up the files. The tracing mechanism makes these lines connect for each of the separate tiles. We just do that, and I just deleted all those, and you just go around and select and delete until you're satisfied. The next thing I noticed is we actually don't need internal borders on an engrave layer, which is what this middle one is. We will need the external border, however, to help with alignment, which we'll get to in one moment here. So now that those are gone, one very important thing to do is to make sure that this is all one cohesive tile. As you can see, if I move this piece here, there's other pieces that are left behind. So I'm going to put that back, and all you're going to do for that is highlight the tile and Command G or group for whatever software you're using. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of these tiles before we go any further. All right, once we're happy with the cleanup and the grouping, the next thing I'd like to do is move the layer the engrave layer on top of the land cut layer, so that when we run the laser, we have two separate jobs going for that laser to do all at once. And this is how I would do it. You simply select the tile of the engrave layer that you're going to be doing on top of your land layer, and you can grab it by the corner of the node there and just drop it on top there. As you can see, now we'll have this engrave layer that we will assign the power level and speed to for the green, and we'll have the cut layer, which is this blue here, and it will look really nice. Now that we've cleaned up and grouped our layers, the next part is we'd like to put the engraved lines on top of the land. That way we can run a job for each tile once for the land cut and the roads engrave. First thing we need to do is we need to make sure let's turn this red so it's very obvious this is going to be a cut line to us, and also roads cut. That makes life easier. It also shortens the amount of layers you see in here when we get ready to define the speed and power for things. So we're gonna go ahead and drag our first tile there over to and on top of the land tile. Looks like we're having a node snapping issue, and there we go. We'll go ahead and do that for each one of these to prepare the tiles for cutting and engraving of land and roads engrave. All right, one last thing to mention is LightBurn loves to turn the mode to line. When you drag and drop your items into LightBurn, you can see here the modes turn to line mode. Well, for this specific feature, we actually wanted it to fill, so we did export it in fill. We just need to change it back here. And now we have a nice filled line that's going to engrave really nicely. And we can see where the red is. That's going to cut really nicely. One last thing that we need to do before we can start sending these jobs to the laser is getting them the right size. So I'm going to go ahead and just click these and go through them one by one. And we're going to go ahead and change the size to 3.5 inches as more of a standard coaster size. All right, we're all ready to go. Ensure you set the correct speed and powers for each of your lasers, and I'll see you over at my laser.
Well, there you have it, tiling. This is just a small example of what you can do with our new feature. I challenge you to show us what you do with it and post it in our Facebook group.